Excellent. Let's take a look at where we left off last time. If I go ahead and press play here, you can see we can move around. There's a couple things going on here that you could see, like if we expand this or whatever, we have these boundaries, right? Now, no, ordinarily, and I've done this in a previous tutorial, what I did is I would look and I would use an object like this, which is like my circle, and in my scene here, let's kind of move all this stuff over a little bit. I'm gonna hit F to focus on that circle. I would use this, something like this, or my ship itself to test the location of where. So it'd be like, oh, it's 10 on this side. I don't want my ship to go 10 past that side, or -9 here, -10, something like that. Same thing up here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. We're going to do something a little different where we're actually going to use the camera, and we're going to use a method called viewport to world point. Viewpoint to world point, sorry. And what that does is we look at our camera here. You can see here's our camera, and it has this. We have like a box where that represents like the what our camera is looking at. And when we convert, we use that method to convert the way that our camera is looking down at the scene. We get 0, 0 for the absolute x point and 0, 1 or 1, 1 rather for the corner point. So it's kind of a nice, easy method to use that'll automatically just keep our ship inside of the boundaries of our camera. So with that, we need two variables that are going to store the x, essentially the minimum and the maximum. So our x and y of that camera. So up here at the top here, I'm just going to duplicate this this player input. We have this player controller here, and I'm just going to duplicate it twice, and I'm going to call this one max boundary, and then I'm going to call this one min boundary. And this one's going to represent essentially the maximum we can go. I guess we can call it like y and x boundary, but let's but for now, just we'll use those values. The next thing I want to do is I want to get this out of my update here. I want to get this information out of here so that it's in its own method. I don't like to keep things in update. So I'm going to highlight all of this and just hit control period. And I'm going to extract the method for this, hit extract method again. And for this method, I'm just going to call this move ship. Or you can call it move player, whatever you feel like is the most descriptive. And now on update every time, let's save that to double check it. It should still work. It's just calling this method every on update instead of dumping a bunch of code inside of one method or inside of our update method. So you can see it still works. Let's go ahead and add our start method here. Let's add that back. And inside of here, we're going to go ahead and get a reference to our main camera on start. So that's this guy right here. And it's pretty easy to do that. You just say camera, and then it's like, which camera do you want? Well, I'm going to name this variable main camera. And what is it equal to? It's equal to the camera.main. Now, something you want to check is, let's see, we have an error here. Cannot resolve main. Let's see if we're missing a using directive. You also want to make sure that your main camera here is tagged as main camera. Now, something I just realized is I'm getting this error for main here. And the reason for that is it says it can't resolve it. And I think the reason is we have another script. Yeah, here. If you look at this, we have a script in here called camera. And it's from our this pack of scripts that we got with our platformer art pack. So we want to make sure that I'm going to go ahead and just delete. I might just delete that whole platformer art pack folder, but you can keep it. But make sure to get rid of that scripts folder that has a script called camera. And now this should work. Yeah, there we go. So now we're using the actual camera script that's built into Unity. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to use these min and max boundaries. So the way I can do that is, let's go ahead and just kind of shift these around. I'm going to grab my min boundary here, and I'm going to say min boundary equals, and now I have access to the main camera, dot viewport. And then what we're looking for is, I think it's viewport to world point here. And then you just want to give it the value. So we want a new vector2 here. So we're creating a new vector2 variable. And let's go ahead and just put this on its own line. So I'm just going to just kind of drop this down a little bit and move this over just so you guys can see it. Now, because we want the minimum boundary, that's the 0, 0 point in the corner. So we're going to do 0, comma 0. And then I'm just going to highlight, click in front of this min boundary and hit Control D. Oh, it looks like it just highlighted only that line, Control D. All right, let's try that one more time. I'm going to hit Enter here and then highlight like maybe all the way down a line and hit Control D. There we go. Now I'm going to rename this one max boundary. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to make this 1, 1, and that's going to give us the top corner. And so this is storing the current and the corner. So if you need to see that in action, you could make a print statement here and just do min boundary, max boundary, and you'll see that it's going to spit out these values. Now, right off the bat, this is going to initialize a variable that's storing our main camera, and it's going to just store only, and all this is doing, by the way, this min and max, remember they're vector 2s here. All this is storing is the number 0, 0, and this is storing the number 1, 1, right? And that's in relation to the converted main camera's viewport to world. So these variables are just storing that information. So we know, you know, so that we know that we can use it. So that's, I don't want you to get too caught up in the sticks by seeing this. So just think about this as storing the number 0, 0, and this one's storing 1, 1. But a conversion has to happen here, and that's what this is for. So let's go ahead and use this, and we're going to take this out of start eventually. You guys know I love to code inside of update and start, and then what I'll do is I'll extract it out later. So let's go inside of our move here, and what we're going to use these to actually restrict or clamp the movement of our ship between those two values. So actually, this is getting our input. We don't want to put it in there. We want it to put it in our actually move code here. So let's take a look here. And what I might do is actually, let's clean this up a little bit, this vector 3 player position. What we'll do is, let's see. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is, just to kind of make this a little clearer, is we have this transform dot position, and then we have it moving according to player position. I can actually just grab all of this code and then just paste it inside of here. So what this is storing now is, this is actually storing the player input, which is the WASD keys times time.delta time times move speed. And then we now have our transform position, which is actually just moving our ship around. And what we'll do is we need to currently store a new position. And what this new position is going to do is it's going to take into account the min and max boundaries. So let's go ahead and make a new variable here, and it's of type vector 2. I'm going to call this new POS. And why did it do all of that? Let's see. Vector 2 new position. And we're just going to make a new variable. So we're going to say this is actually a new variable of type vector 2, and I'll fix that in a second. That equal sign here. And so what we're going to say here is new position, because all we're doing is we're using this to break off the X and the Y, and then we're going to feed that back in. So you'll see that in a second. So new position here dot X equals, and then we're going to do math F, and then the reason we're using this math function here is that it has a clamp value, which will, all it does is it restricts the value between two floats, right? It says returns the natural base out like logarithm of a specified number, float and float. So what this is doing is we could just say, hey, I only want to clamp this between two values, right? And so the two values that I want to clamp are really our transform.position.x, which is whatever our current position is. And the two values I want to clamp are really between my, I want to add this to my player position, which is here, dot X. So this is the initial value. So this is going to give me my current position, right? It's our transform.position, which is whatever this is on, plus my player position.x. Because remember, player position is my ship constantly moving. And the two values I want to clamp between are really my min and max boundaries. So it's my min boundary here. Actually, I could have just grabbed it. from here, but min boundary. Let's put this on a new line too so you can see it. Actually, we could even break these up. So I'll put this on a new line here. Min boundary dot x. And then the second value that we want is max boundary dot x. So this is really clamping between 0 and 1. And I know that because if you look at my x position here, it's 1, and my y position is 0. And remember, you don't have to type this vector3 position. This is my writer that's kind of updating all of this code. So what I'm going to do is highlight all of this again and just hit Control D. And I'm just going to change all of these to y. So just double clicking these, y, y, and then y. So now we have a the new position x and y of these, and these are the clamped values. So this is like, you know, min boundary dot y is 0, max boundary dot y is 1. Because remember, this is 1, 1 max boundary. So let's save that. Now, because this is updating, all we have to say, because now this variable here, new position, it's a vector 2, right? So it's got the x and y. All I have to do now is just say transform.position, not plus equals, just equals new position here. And I'm going to save that. And so this is going to feed in this clamped value, right, on the x and y. So it'll only go so far. And one other thing we can do is, because we're not going to be doing anything in the z-axis, you could just change this back to a vector 2. So let's save this. And now you have to understand something too. Let's go ahead and press play. It's not going to be perfect, so let's take a look at that. And what I mean by that is, this is a great system. Instead of trying to have to hard code or calculate where the boundaries is, it's just using the camera's boundaries. But the reason I say it's not perfect is you see how it's using the pivot point of the ship. But what's nice though is we are stuck between the actual boundaries of the camera. Do you see that inside of this view here? And you can see down here, as we're moving around, you know, all the values being updated. So let's go ahead and add a little bit of extra polish here. And let's go ahead and leave our vector 2's down here. And I'm going to duplicate this 4 times. And I'm going to just get rid of the serialized field. So I'm holding Control and Alt at the same time. And then what it does is it highlights all of that. And then I'm still holding Control, or I think it's Shift. Yeah. Let's see if we could do this. Yeah, Alt Shift, sorry. And it's letting me go down, and I'm just going to delete all of those serialized fields at the same time. So let me show you that one more time. It's kind of a neat trick. You hold Control and Alt, and you go to the right, and it'll select all of it. Then Alt and Shift, and you'll go down, and you could delete multiple lines, which is kind of cool. So we're going to name this padding left. And I'm just going to duplicate this. Padding right. Padding top. And padding bottom. And then we don't need any of these values either. We're going to calculate all of this. And this is just going to be based on how much we want to offset our ship as it moves so that it's bumping on the sides. Because remember, right now we're looking at just the center point of our ship, and that's what's stopping us. And you could also do it like this, right? So I can highlight all of these, and I can hit Alt and Shift, right? I'm holding Shift and Alt. I hope this is the same. And I could just type in public here, and I can rename all of them at once. And I'm going to go ahead and hit Control S. Normally I do it as a serialized field. I just want to show you this trick. And now when I select my player ship here, you could see I have them all inside of here. Now let's go ahead and add the code inside of our clamp so that we do our padding. Because what we want to do is we want to add to the top of, because when we look at our minimum and maximum boundaries here, right, what we're actually doing is we're looking at positive numbers and negative numbers as we're adding and subtracting from when we move. So let me show you what I mean by that. So if I move my character to the left, you can see it has a negative value, but if I move it to the right, it has a positive value. So we need to subtract and add from those values so that our ship bumps against it. I'm not sure what that padding is going to be. That's why I have these as public. But what it is remember, this is our X position. So we have a left and a right, right? So what I want to do is I want to add to the left position. So I'm just going to do plus padding left. And then to the maximum boundaries, which is to the right, I want to subtract my padding right. So padding right. And it's really the same from the bottom or the top, right? So here's my Y position here. And what I want to do here is I want to add from my padding bottom. And then I want to subtract from my padding top. And so let's take a look at that one more time. So as I'm moving up my ship, it's going to, you see how that value is getting positive? So I need to subtract from it. And as I'm going down here, I need to add to it because it's going to subtract from the bottom. Now, I don't know how much that's going to be, so we can go ahead and save this. And let's go ahead and test those, enter some values here. Now, I'm just going to take a guess here, but I can probably show you like a quick way of detecting this. If I move my ship roughly here, right, you can see it's at a 9.5. And I subtract 0.5 from that, I get jolted over just a little bit. So we can try that at first because this whole ship is at 1. It might not be perfect because the shape of my ship, but let's go ahead and add 0.5 to each one of these. And let's save this, and let's make sure our ship is at 0 here, and position it towards the bottom. Yeah, see how it only has that value? So if I move this over just a nudge a bit, I might go with a whole 1, see what that does. Yeah, so the 1 is a little bit better. So this is actually my game windows, this. Let's actually kind of nudge that over just a little bit. So I'm getting 1.25. Just going to tab down and paste. Yeah, that's a little bit better. And then the bottom is definitely not, well, actually, the top needs a little bit more. 1.75. So the top and the bottom, it's 1.75, 1.75. You could play with these values yourself. I'm kind of stretching this tutorial out a little bit too long, or this lesson out. But yeah, that looks good to me. I'm staying in the boundaries. And again, if anything is confusing, set up a time to meet with me. But overall, just understand that this is the kind of the big takeaway here is this viewport to world, which is a different way of doing things. Because you'll see a lot of things online or in tutorials where they actually, and I've actually learned this way too, where we actually set the actual number based on the ship and do some calculations. And this is just a much faster way of doing it.